Welcome! Thank you so much for joining me on the Socially Delightful podcast. I'm Jewel, human connection enthusiast and your host, and this show is all about delighting in yourself, delighting in socializing and in others, and creating truly supportive, delightful friendships and relationships, even in our modern world with our modern stress. In this podcast, we have fun creating a new culture of living in social delight. Now let's dive into how we're going to do that today. Welcome back to the Socially Delightful podcast, everybody. I am so excited. I have Sarah Fisk on the episode today. We're going to talk about all things people pleasing during the holiday season. Sarah is an expert at this, and I'm just so excited to talk to her about it. So she is a master certified coach and an instructor who teaches women how to tame the rampant people-pleasing perfectionism and codependency that is causing them so much frustration and resentment. I mean, perfect for this podcast, am I right? She says that she is an anxious optimist and a born-again feminist who listens to more books than she actually sits down to read. She loves a good hike, some good dark chocolate, some good conversations, and her big dreams include learning to sail and to sing and to dance like J-Lo and helping thousands of women create the big, juicy lives that they want to be living. Sarah is also a mom of 5, and she enjoys those roles most of the time. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I always laugh because I've thought multiple times about taking that line out about learning to sing and dance like J-Lo, but I am such an awkward dancer. I would love to just have a little more moves. Come on, is that too much to hope for?
I feel that. I feel that. I'm a bit lanky, and it's so wild because my brother, who is just this like jock looking guy, is the best dancer out of the whole family. And he puts us all to shame at every wedding, every event. And we're all just like, what the heck? So I feel you. I love that though. And I also love too that you say, I am a wife and a mom of 5, and I enjoy those roles most of the time. I mean, goes with everything that you were about. I love
Yeah.
that so much, and how well said. So, Sarah, I know a little bit about your story from
Mhm.
listening to your podcast, but for everybody else, could you tell us a bit about how you got into this work to help women stop people pleasing?
I used to be a fantastic people pleaser. I mean, I was everybody's favorite person because I was so reliable, so dependable. I would do it. Of course, I'll handle that. No problem. Oh, I totally have time. I don't need any help. I can actually do it all myself. And I had really made my personal brand be about being the person who everybody could rely on and depend on, the one who planned all the things. And I wasn't even aware that it was costing me because I grew up in a religious tradition, very conservative Christian group, the LDS Mormon Church, where that is like primo female behavior. That's what you get rewarded for. That is what gets you recognized and loved, and it gets you as much proximity to authority and power as is allowed for women inside of the LDS religion. And so I was living my best, most faithful Mormon wife and mother and daughter and sister life. And it wasn't until there were a lot of situations that, or just a lot of factors in deciding to leave that religious group that made me come face to face with the fact that this behavior that is so well rewarded inside of this religious group actually makes me feel stuck and resentful and frustrated, and it's not how I actually want to be living my life. And so, in addition to leaving the religious group that I had grown up with and really thought I would be a part of my whole life, losing friends, losing connections, losing community, I had to kind of remake things from the ground up. And I saw with such clarity how this behavior that had been so well rewarded inside of one system was absolutely hurting me and keeping me stuck and preventing me from living the full truly sovereign life that I wanted outside of that system.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing. I mean, I think even if somebody hasn't grown up in that kind of environment, like myself, I grew up where religion wasn't even really talked about in my home, and I think it's you can't not absorb some of these messages, right, from like our society. It's a gas that's everywhere and we're all inhaling it, and that's one thing I actually talk about a lot, is like sometimes you just gotta like be aware, like, oh, okay, that's like a societal belief they're sneaking in again, like, hey, how you doing? Because no matter what, like, you're gonna smell some of it, right? It's around you. So I can't even imagine growing up in an environment where that is, like you said, like so rewarded and so modeled. And i I just think it's huge, and it takes so much courage and bravery to step away from everything you know to choose yourself. Like, really, that's deeply inspiring.
Thank you. I also just want to affirm what you said, that type of, conditioning does exist inside of conservative religious communities, but it is everywhere. Because
Yeah.
once I could see it inside of my conservative religious community, I was like, oh, wait, this is everywhere. This is the good girl programming that everybody gets. And it's just that inside of religious communities, they tell you that that's what God wants from you, right?
Mm,
Outside of religious communities, it's like, this is what a good girl does at school. This is what a good girl does in her family, in friend groups, in intimate relationships. And so it is the air that we are breathing, this kind of patriarchal programming that hands us the script of what we should be like as women and girls and daughters and sisters and mothers and friends. And so it's a challenge to see it, but once you see it, it's everywhere.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's so many things I could bring up, like so many stories about how I'll just say this one because I was reflecting on this recently. And, I grew up like in the Midwest. I lived really close to Flint. And so I felt like personally that my school was really diverse and that we had a lot of different religions and opinions and backgrounds and things like that. And again, I wasn't growing up in this like highly religious environment. But anyway, I remember telling somebody one time, and I had to be like 7, that because I don't know, like kids, they talk about like have like what are you going to be when you grow up, right? What kind of family are you going to have? What are you going to name your future children? And I remember telling somebody that I only wanted to have boys because girls were like untrustworthy. Like, what? At
Yeah.
that young of an
Yeah.
age? And it's like nobody directly has said that to me, like to
Right.
young Jewel. And again, I grew up in, like, in my opinion, like a diverse environment with different opinions and ways of life. And I still was like, yeah, no, girls are bad. So it's
Yeah.
so insidious. It goes so deep. Um, I want to talk about how this shows up really in the holidays, but you also touch on a couple of things that are really exciting. Actually, I'm going to hold myself back a little bit. We're going to get to that point, but there's got to be somebody listening who's like, okay, I can kind of understand. I can kind of get with it, but they might not exactly know. Maybe they're new to all of this. They might not exactly know, okay, what really is like people pleasing and what is just, if you will, being kind. And so can you enlighten us a bit on that difference?
Yes. This is such a great place to start because from the outside, you cannot tell if something is people pleasing or just being kind because the outside behavior looks the same.
Mm.
So I define people pleasing as having the internal experience of not having a choice. So not having a choice to do what you need or what you think is best because you are so overly attached or overly connected to other people's needs and wants.
I love that. I love that. And I think telling everybody too that it could look the same from the outside is so helpful, because I think our brains really like things to be black and white. And I think realizing that and knowing that this is an internal experience is really helpful. Now, one thing that you can hear in Sarah's story and how you were describing what the experience was like for you, you can, at least I can hear it because again, I can see it. This perfectionism
Yeah.
of, okay, you need to be the perfect, like, good girl. This is how you are, good enough at school. This is how you're good enough in relationships. And it's like striving for this level of perfection. So, in your opinion, Sarah, because I know you talk about that a lot as well, like, how do people pleasing and perfectionism work together?
I look at perfectionism as a type of people pleasing.
Oh, yeah.
Perfectionism says if I just do this good enough, and actually, good enough isn't even the word, if I just do this perfectly, I will be safe and I will be loved. I will be rewarded. I will belong. And so, like, for example, I am not a perfectionist people pleaser. I focus, so what that would mean for me is I don't have to do the thing perfectly, but I just have to do lots of things for other people. I have to always be focusing on what the people around me want and need. And if I can't rock the boat, I can't say anything uncomfortable, I can't be difficult, I can't be a burden, I can't ask for help. But perfectionism wasn't something particular to the way that I felt like I had to do things. But my perfectionist people pleasers, they very much feel like everything they do or present or take part in or submit as their work or suggest as an activity has to be executed perfectly. And that is what will keep me safe. And that is what will get me love.
Yeah. Yeah. And they really do work together. I love that distinction because we talk on the podcast so much about social perfectionism, which is also really like what you're describing, right? Which is I got to say the right thing at the right time in the right way so that this person has the right reaction and likes me, approves of me, and then I feel safe, right? I think this is so insidious because this creates social anxiety. And so in the past, I was extroverted. Like, sure, I would go like nonverbal sometimes in social settings or get really quiet. But I was like, I'm extroverted. So I can't have like social anxiety. Like, I don't struggle with that. And there weren't names to what we're talking about right now. Right. Like, I call it social perfectionism, but I love identifying because it is people pleasing. Like, how can
Yeah.
I handle this situation perfectly so that everybody around me approves of me and likes me? I i just really like your explanation of that. So I
And
think,
and
oh, go
can I
ahead.
just add one other thing is how I help my clients recognize that it is people pleasing is internally the perfectionist will notice themselves adjusting or wanting validation, and that internal, like, what do they need, what is it, perfect enough, do they like it, do they want more, do they want different, you're sacrificing, you're internally adjusting, you're being afraid of rejection if it's not perfect. All of those kind of tie into why perfectionism is a type of people pleasing.
Yeah. I'm just elated, I gotta say, having this conversation with you because this is something that I think about often, and it's just so fun. So, like, if anybody could hear me, like, beaming in my energy, just going. Uh, Now, I also think it's helpful for people. So, we talked about the patriarchy and how this gets
Mm-hmm.
into your brain and really, really contributes to people pleasing, to perfectionism, social perfectionism. I also think we could touch on the other thing that you said really quickly and make sure it's very obvious to everybody that it's something that you're often doing to try to feel safe,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, there are three things that humans need to feel. One of them is safety. And if you think about the ways that our anxiety is really that external monitoring of like, am I safe here? Do I belong here? Do they like me here? Am I okay here? Can I be myself here? And we're constantly kind of sending out all of these pinging signals off of, if you want to look at, the other people around you as like towers of information, and you're sending out a ping and you're getting something back from them. You're trying to decide, am I safe here? Is it okay to be me here? So safety is one of the things that humans have to feel. The second is connection. And that is, not only am I safe here, but I am liked here. I am wanted here. I belong here. I have a place here. And so we're constantly, and again, as mammals, this is kind of where my nerdy side comes out. We can't not do this, right? We actually have a name for people who don't do this. And it's psychopaths and
Yeah.
narcissists, right?
Yeah.
Who have some kind of diagnosable mental thing going on, mental or emotional thing where they don't care, and that allows them to hurt other people without the normal boundaries that people who are not psychopaths and narcissists have. And the reason that I want to say that is because all of us, we sometimes can get too overcome by this. Don't give a shit. Sorry, can I cuss?
No, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. Okay. So don't give a shit about what other people think. That's actually impossible for a regular,
Yes.
normal human. It's impossible, right?
Mhm.
Just do what you want to do. That's impossible because we are made to want and seek connection. And so we're pinging other people all the time for signs of connection in addition to safety. And then the third thing we need is dignity. We need to feel like we matter to other people, and that we have a place in our lives where we can experience the positive side of ego, which is I matter, I deserve to be taken care of, I deserve to take care of me. And so between safety, connection, and dignity, we are made to be looking around in our environment for signs that that can happen. But what we overlook is that we can provide some of that, and we should and need to learn to provide some safety for ourselves, some connection for ourselves, and some dignity for ourselves.
Oh, so good. Can y'all tell why I'm so excited to have Sarah? Sarah, I have said this so many times, and people have been like, oh, wow, like nobody has told me that in this way about
Yeah.
psychopaths and about how not caring what other people think and not looking for those signs of, like you said, connection and dignity and safety. So good. I have said this so many times, and it just is, it's so exciting for me to hear you say this because I personally have like a little mini, I don't know, if you can imagine the inside out little like feelings, like my
Yes,
anger one
yes.
gets so activated when I see people online being like, oh yeah, you can't just don't care what people think, just don't care what people think, because that also prevents you from the very connection that you were wanting to have in the first place. And it's not authentic for a lot of people. For a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast right now, I know you are empathetic and sensitive and you right identify that way. And so somebody telling you just don't care what they think, it's just, it puts up this like wall, right? So I love that you talk about, okay, it's about how can we do this for ourselves. You explained it so well. I'm beaming. Like I have like energy just like coursing through me right now. So I know that you are, so by the time this podcast will be released, I think you will be like towards the end of this challenge. But I also know that you are teaching a holiday workshop on people pleasing because it really comes up during the holidays. So, can you tell us a bit about what you are teaching? Give us like a sneak peek, a little taste, especially because this podcast will be coming out, so you'll have to go check out the her resources for it after. But
Yeah,
yeah, you,
100%. And for anyone listening, I have a free Facebook group called Stop People Pleasing, and all of the holiday material will be there. So even though you're hearing
perfect.
this and the challenge is over, you can still get all of the information inside of that free group. So the holidays are a uniquely stressful, pressure filled time because there are so many expectations so many hopes, so many needs, and people pleasers find themselves usually being the ones who are expected to provide this magical holiday, family centered experience that is supposed to make everybody feel so good.
Mm.
And for a lot of people, the holidays are a time of sadness, of loss. We're supposed to forget all of that and just focus on family ties that don't feel good, maybe for the 10 other months of the year. And we're supposed to pretend that they feel great around the holidays. We're supposed to dismiss the financial pressure that we feel all the time and buy things for other people because we know it's what they want. We are supposed to give time, energy, and effort preparing these sometimes elaborate meals with food that is deeply either sentimental or culturally valued, which takes a lot. And when you have people pleasers who are rewarded for being strong and tough and not needing help, what they think is that they're supposed to do all of this on their own.
Mm.
And it becomes really overwhelming. And so many people pleasers, women in general, or humans who are socialized as women, they love the holidays because of some of the family time, and they are deeply feeling kind, connected, loving people, and they want that. But there is a resentment that they're supposed to do it all alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think too, for those of you that maybe are new to this and new to these ideas and really trying to play with and figure out, oh, am I people pleasing? Am I not? I think one thing that is really helpful to notice is as you agree to do something, as you say yes, as you are in a environment, like what feelings come up, because if there's resentment there, there's probably some people pleasing, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
There are
yeah, go ahead.
There's two other emotions I would love to just throw up on people's, and actually, let's do three. You mentioned resentment. Ding, ding, ding. That is a sign that you are not taking good enough care of yourself. Another sign is dread,
Mm,
dreading having said yes to a holiday event or party, dreading saying, yes, I will do this thing. Another is envy. I remember um, envying people who had figured out how to have a simpler holiday. I'm, up at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night on Christmas Eve, wrapping presents. Christmas is the holiday we celebrate. I know there's a lot of different diverse holidays out there, but envious of other people who had figured out how to do it a little simpler where they seem to be having a better time. And the last one is kind of closely tied to resentment, and it's anger. When you find
mm,
yourself getting angry or resentful about the commitments you've made or the asks that people have of you, it's time to check something.
yeah. Yeah. Great signals. And I think everybody can just kind of exhale a little bit, because even the stuff that we're talking about, I've had to work on this myself quite a bit, and I'm assuming some of y'all have too, where I've really had to work on my relationship with anger because I didn't think it was okay. That's a whole other conversation, but for
Yeah.
me as a woman to be angry, and so I love how we're talking about it in this sense, because it's use this as a signal. Recognize, oh, here is me people pleasing, right? Here is something I need to check in with. And it doesn't have to be wrong, and you don't have to feel any shame about it. Like, let us give you like a permission slip right now to feel that, to
Yes.
check in, and to decide, okay, how can I, actually offload some of this people pleasing? Which, Sarah, what would you say to somebody that's like, okay, great, I've recognized it, but now what do I do?
Okay. So I want you to think about the upcoming holiday, either commitments you've made, the parties, the things everything on your to-do list. Okay. The holiday to-do list is where we're going to focus. And I want you to just think of one thing. And I want you to ask yourself, who wants this? Who wants this thing? Do you have a name? Okay. Second question, do you want this? Like when you think about this thing, is there actual desire in your body for this thing? Let's take, I have a dear friend, and her father-in-law lives about an hour away. He loves to plan an elaborate day of, there's like a hayride and caroling, and they bake cinnamon rolls and like take them to people in their neighborhood, and they do this as a family. Okay, so who wants this? She would say, my father-in-law wants this. Do I want this? That's where I start to wonder, because the third question is then, if I want this, why do I want it? And if I don't want it, why don't I want this? Let's get honest for just a second, because people pleasers are so programmed to ignore the signals from themselves and to privilege and prioritize other people's wants and needs. Let's just be honest, even if you only tell the truth to just yourself, I don't want to go out there all day long. I don't want to go to my father-in-law's. I don't want to sit on bales of hay while he drives the tractor around his property and pretend like I'm having fun. I don't want to do this. Why? Because I want that day for myself, or because it's exhausting, or because I don't like being around that many people. It doesn't matter why, but let's just be honest with you about wanting. Second of all, after that, next question, is there any reason why I would want to do it anyway? Okay, well, let's consider my father-in-law. Let's consider my kids. She has children. I'm just kind of making this up as I go along from her perspective based on our conversations. So, yeah, this is important to my kids. They really like going out there. Okay, where can I be included in this decision as well? Because people pleasers are so used to it being all or nothing. It's all everyone and I get nothing. Or, and this is kind of what one of the things we're afraid of, if I just do what I want to do and I don't pay attention to what anybody else wants, that's not what I want either. But where is there something in the middle where I also get some of what I want in addition to other people getting what they want? What is an actual option that I have there? I could skip the hayride. I could just go out for the cinnamon rolls and the caroling, right? I could just do part, I could just do some. And then the last part is, if I'm going to actually include myself in the equation and get something of what I want, we have the expectation that that's going to feel good, but it's not. It's actually going to feel scary and uncomfortable in the beginning. And so we have to name the emotion that we are going to feel. So if I include myself and I'm not just sacrificing an entire Saturday because that's what my father-in-law and kids want, if there is going to be room for me, what am I going to be feeling when I say, hey, father-in-law, thank you so much for this invitation. I see you're starting at 10 a.m. We're going to make it out there by about 2 p.m. You're going to see us at 2. What am I going to be feeling? I'm going to be feeling anxious. I'm going to be feeling worried that he's going to be sad or disappointed. I'm going to have to tell my kids and they're going to be upset. So I have to name and get honest about the fact that the first time I do this, it's not going to feel good. And how can I take care of myself even though it doesn't feel good?
That that is beautiful, and I love that you described the negative emotions that are coming up, because especially in the beginning, like, this is going to feel really unfamiliar and therefore, like, scarier, if you will, and more anxiety inducing perhaps because of that. And I love that you prepare people for that, because I think, again, with my back to my little rant about not caring what people think, I think almost like we think we need to be like kind of hard and stoic, and it's like that doesn't have to be that either. I think actually we can still really be like the sensitive, empathetic people we are and do what Sarah's describing, everybody, which is include yourself. Be honest with yourself to include yourself and stick to that. Stick to how you want to include yourself. I think I really appreciate that. So, Sarah, is there anything else about the holidays? Because especially I can see this coming up for somebody that maybe is expecting like a bigger reaction from a family member, right? So, what advice would you have to that person that's like, okay, that would be great if my father in law was like, a reasonable person? uh,
Right, right.
but for those that do not have family members with emotional maturity or capacity, what's your advice for them?
Two things, and I'm so glad you asked that because there are two really important ways that we can take care of ourselves when we are preparing to do something scary or uncomfortable because it's new, but we want the outcome of that. We want to be included in the holidays as well, and we want to have a good experience. The first thing that I have my clients do is create the mental movie of them saying, "Hey, father in law, thank you so much for the invitation. I see you're starting at 10. We're going to see you at 2 because that's what works for us this year." They create the vision of them or the movie making the phone call. They feel the anxiety wherever it is in their body. I tend to feel everything kind of in my chest. They see themselves putting their hand on their chest and comforting themselves. They have the conversation and they are prepared. They prepare themselves beforehand with this mental rehearsal. It's like lifting some of those weights to strengthen yourself before you actually do the thing, before you actually make the phone call, because you're giving your body practice with those uncomfortable emotions. You're taking care of yourself by calming yourself with maybe a hand on your chest or a pep talk right before, and you're practicing feeling that new, scary, uncomfortable emotion that you actually want to be feeling, because that's what's going to create the new habit of I am also included in the holidays. I include myself. I insist that I be included. And I have conversations with people about how I'm going to be including myself. So, number one, before you have the conversations about what you want to be different, create the movie. It allows your body to practice feeling the feeling, and then you can play that movie as many times as you need. Mental rehearsal is very powerful to prepare us to do something different than we've done in the past.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the first one.
So good. Go ahead.
Second of all, I feel like these sentences have really helped me to hang on to either the limit or the expectation or the boundary that I have set and still be the kind, loving person I want to be. Because, and I'm going to give you these sentences in just a second. If you can imagine father-in-law, I have him on the phone and he's like, "What? I've I've gone through so much trouble to have you guys here all day. I already bought all the hay bales. I already, right? There's going to be pushback because other people want what they want, and that's fine. We can understand that. But here are the sentences. Oh, that makes sense. Dad, or father-in-law, I understand. I get it. Thank you so much for going to so much trouble. I really appreciate that. And because of the way things are this year, or because of this is just what I want, because of what's going on for my family, we're going to see you at 2. So it's
So good.
starting with some kind of understanding. This makes sense. I get it. I see where you're coming from. I totally understand how much this means to you. And because I also matter, here is where you can give some more information if you want to, because we are so busy this holiday season, or because of what's going on for our family, or because of what's going on for me personally, you can say those things if you feel comfortable doing that. We will see you at 2. So showing some empathy and giving a reason if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to. I find myself wanting people to my um, understand my frame of mind and my situation so that we can remain connected and vulnerable. But sometimes people are not going to understand. They really don't care about your perspective. So you're going to have to just make that judgment call. But I find that when I am disappointing someone and I know I'm disappointing them and I acknowledge, I know that this is disappointing for you. And I wish that weren't the case. But because of what's going on for me this year, we will see you at 2. It's kind, it's clear, it acknowledges their disappointment, and I'm not changing based on their disappointment.
Yeah. So good. So it that also kind of goes into another little a little rant that I have about like pop culture advice, that because we hear so often, right, like no is a complete sentence, and yes, absolutely it is. And I love that you make the distinction, right, of yeah, you do not have to explain yourself. And I do think, especially, for those of you listening, I know because I get messages from y'all like that you are sensitive and empathetic, and you have grown to either like that about yourself, or you don't necessarily want to change that. And I love that you are giving us a framework for how to go about that, how to still be sensitive and empathetic. And it aligns, right? Everybody, those of us that are, fans of the Socially Delightful podcast, we've also heard this before, right? That when we lead with connection in that way, it allows us to be vulnerable, to be honest, and to, in the long run, to have more fulfilling relationships. Because if, and like one of my favorite examples of this, and this is maybe not dealing with somebody that is really intense and is going to have an intense reaction, but one of my favorite examples was one of my clients was messaging a friend, and she was like, hey, I know that we had plans to go on a walk, and I know you can't leave your house because of some reason. I forgot if it was a dog, a baby, or something. She's like, I know you can't leave your house. I had like the worst day at work. And then she said to her friend, she was like, and I love you and I want to spend time with you, and I really need a minute to process everything that happened today, and she even let her, and she was very honest. She was like, and I'm really trying to work on that. I've been on the receiving end of a message like that from friends, and I can tell you that would probably walk around and be like, oh my gosh, yes, because I felt let in on like that person's experience. And my client, by doing that, let their friend in on that experience and was like, oh my gosh, I was surprised by like how connected like we were the next time I saw her. Like I was so afraid that this person was going to take it as a rejection. And yes, you cannot control how people receive this, but I think when you are transparent in your communication or letting people in on your experience, it's vulnerable. And what do we know about vulnerability? It's seeing each other, it's connection, right? So I just appreciate that example so much, because I think oftentimes we think, right, in a very binary way. It's either I'm not people pleasing, or I am and I'm kind and I'm nice and I have connection. And so it's like, why would you want to stop people pleasing if you think you have to give that up? You don't. You don't have to give that up. There's so many things I could say about this. This aligns so much with our work, like the work that I do, Sarah. And so I'm so grateful to have you come on and to explain things in such a succinct, clear way for everybody. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I also know that your program is launching again in January, right?
Yes, I work with women to stop people pleasing in a group coaching setting, and the next time that group is going to be open is at the beginning of February, and so I'm going to be talking about that a lot in January. If you're interested in listening to my podcast or learning more about that group, joining my free Facebook group, all of that can be found in the bio of my Instagram profile, Sarah Fisk Coaching.
Beautiful. Yeah, go check it out, everybody. Go check out that holiday stuff in the free Facebook group. Go check out Sarah. It's so helpful too. Even if you're a client of mine, go check it out because it's helpful to be in an environment where people are having these kind of conversations. It makes it like repetition is key, right? And so I really encourage y'all to go check it out. Sarah also has a podcast called the Ex Good Girl Podcast, and I was on there talking about friendship, which is so good and so fun. So you might want to check that out. Um, and also, just to give everybody a little hint of what's up and coming, we are going to be talking a bit more about this on a different level. We're going to be talking more about what I've been calling like feminist charisma, because I was really sick of like, oh, I need to be likable, get everybody to like me, or like I'm being a bad feminist by doing that. It's like, no, I'm trying to offer invitations for connection because I want to walk around social venues and connect with people quicker and deeper, and I don't have to be attached to them like me liking me or not. And that this episode is just honestly going to be this material and like that kind of venue, y'all. Like this is the work, what we talked about today. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for being such a great interviewer and giving me the chance to share some things with your audience. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. All right, y'all, and I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me on the Socially Delightful podcast. I'm Jewel, and I'm truly so grateful that you came and hung out with me today. If this podcast meant something to you, it would mean so much to me if you left me a review so that way I could keep making content that you love. And if you really want to make my whole day, share this podcast to your Instagram story and tag me at Connection with Jewel so I can shout you out. Or send me a message and let me know what resonated with you or what you want to hear next. And I'll see you at the next episode.